The Prime Minister had appointed this committee to look into the various issues relating to the regulation of the sugar sector. As you all know, that the sugar sector is subject to a number of regulations. These regulations have come from time to time, either to protect the sugarcane producers or consumers or the mills or all of them. Therefore, this committee was enjoined to look at the various regulations and make recommendations regarding which one of them should continue, which should be dispensed with, and what modifications should be made to the regulatory framework relating to the sugar industry. As you all know, at the present moment, the sugar sector, which comprises of the sugarcane producers, sugarcane mills, sugar mills, as well as the consumers, are subject to some of the following regulations. First of all, there is the cane reservation regulation, under which every mill has a designated area from which it has to procure the sugarcane. And the sugarcane producers in that area have to necessarily sell all the sugarcane to that particular mill. Then there is also a distance criterion under which the Government of India prescribes the minimum distance between one sugar mill and another sugar mill. An important regulation relating to the sugar sector relates to the manner in which the sugarcane producers must be compensated. The Government of India now fixes what is called the fair and remunerative price. This is to be paid to the sugarcane producers by all sugar mills. But at the present moment, the state governments also prescribe SAP, as it's called, and this price very often turns out to be much higher than the fair and remunerative price. So this is the present system that is being followed. Then there are other regulations relating to Levy sugar. There are regulations relating to the release of sugar. The export and import of sugar is also controlled. There are regulations relating to the way in which the byproducts of sugar, such as molasses and bagasse, can be used. So there is a whole gamut of regulations relating to the sugar sector. And we have looked at all of these regulations, and I would like to place before you the key recommendations of the committee. A major recommendation of the committee relates to revising the existing arrangement for the price to be paid to the sugarcane farmers. The present system suffers from problems of accumulation of arrears of cane dues in years of high price and low price for farmers in other years. The existing arrangement, as I mentioned earlier, comprises a fair and remunerative price announced by each year by the Centre under the Sugarcane Control Order and under the advice of CACP as the minimum price of sugarcane. However, many states, particularly in North India, also announce a state advised price under state legislation. Generally, the SAP is substantially higher than the FRP, and wherever SAP is declared, it is a ruling price. Instead of the present arrangement, the committee has proposed that at the time of cane supply, farmers be paid the FRP as the minimum price as at present. Further, subsequently, on a half-yearly basis, the state government concerned would announce the ex-mill price of sugar and its byproducts, and farmers would be entitled to a 70% share in the value of the sugar and byproducts produced from the quantity of cane supplied by each farmer. Based on the share so computed, additional payment net of FRP already paid would then be made to the farmer. Since the sugar value estimate includes return on capital employed, this implies that farmers would also get a share of the profits. With such a system in operation, states should not declare an SAP. So what we are suggesting is a revenue sharing mechanism. A revenue sharing mechanism in which the sugarcane producers will also get a particular share of the total revenue. We have come to the proportion of 70:30 on the basis of the data that are available and analyzed by CACP. for a reason here. We did find that actually with respect to the total cost, the costs incurred by the sugarcane producers constitutes about 69 or 69.1%, and the balance by the sugar mills. Therefore, we have suggested that, rounding it off, that the share of the sugarcane producers should be 70%, and the sugar mills 30% of all the products, not only sugar, but also all the byproducts. If we want to simplify it only in terms of sugar, it comes to 75% of the value of sugar. But the basic principle that we have adopted is that 70% of sugar as well as all the byproducts, the value of all of them should be given to the sugarcane producers, and the balance will go to the sugar mills. We think that this arrangement is a distinct improvement over the present arrangement. This will not result in the kind of cane arrears that we have seen in the past. This underlies a basic principle that the sugarcane producers has an important stake, and they would get 70% of the value. Therefore, that is an important principle that we are underlying. It might happen under the old system also, but that happens in a very erratic way. That doesn't happen in a very systematic way. Whereas under the present system, we have evolved a mechanism under which the sugarcane producers will get 70% of the value of the sugar and other byproducts produced by any sugar mill. We have also outlined in the report the appropriate mechanism that can be adopted in order to determine the revenue of each mill. It will be done on a half-yearly basis. We also feel that the present rules relating to cane area reservation as well as the distance criterion have not served the purpose. The idea behind the sugarcane reservation, area reservation, was that it will establish a long-term relationship between the sugarcane producer and the mill, and therefore this will lead to improved productivity of sugarcane. But this has not happened. All the data do not reveal any great improvement in the productivity of sugarcane. Therefore, what the better arrangement would be for sugarcane growers to have a long-term contractual arrangement with the sugar mills. But we recognize at the same time that it may not be easy to move immediately towards that. Therefore, in the interim period, the present system can continue. But over the long term, we suggest that we move towards a system in which long-term contracts can be established between the sugarcane producers and the sugar mills. Similarly, with the distance criterion, we do not see any great justification. After all, no sugar mill will be established if it is unprofitable to establish in any particular place. Therefore, over the long term, it should also be dispensed with, but it cannot be dispensed with so long as the cane reservation area rule or regulation also continues. It is only when the sugarcane reservation regulation lapses or is dispensed with, then this can also happen, that we can dispense with the distance criteria. Until then, I think, as an interim arrangement, this can continue. We are also making the recommendation that the present system of levying 10% of the production of the sugar to be procured by the government for distribution to the public distribution system may be dispensed with. The system of levy sugar, as it operates, has had many problems. Each mill has to set aside now 10% of its production for the purpose of surrendering to the government as the levy sugar. This leads to unnecessary locking up of sugar. There are unnecessary inventory costs being borne by the sugar mills. And it is also a case of what we might call a cross-subsidy between the market and the public distribution system. Ultimately, the cost is borne by the sugar mills and indirectly by the sugarcane producers also. Therefore, we recommend that the system of levy sugar should go. But the state governments can certainly procure whatever they want from the market and sell through the public distribution system at an issue price determined by them. But at the same time, we have recommended that there is now an implicit subsidy of 3,000 crores involved in the fact that the government is able to get it at the levy price, which is lower than the market price. This 3,000 crore subsidy must be distributed to the various state governments. Therefore, the state governments will have this amount of subsidy given by the central government to them. They can use this subsidy along with the other subsidy which is also now available to them for the purpose of distribution of sugar through the public distribution system. This might in fact result in the reduction in the total cost of procurement to the state government, because they can procure, each state government can procure from the market the sugar that is required. The unnecessary transportation of sugar from every mill all over the country will be avoided. There is also presently a system of releases regulated by the government. This is on the argument that the supply of sugar happens in one part of the year, whereas the demand is spread throughout the year. Since there is a mismatch between the two, it should be regulated, and the consumers should not be put to undue difficulties, or it should not lead to heavy fluctuation in prices. But I think the seasonality is not peculiar to sugar alone. It applies to all agricultural commodities. All agricultural commodities get produced in 1 year, but whereas the demand extends throughout the year, the demand for it extends throughout the year. Therefore, we do not think that there is any particular reason why we need to have a system of regulated releases. The industry can take care of it, and the industry can manage it, and therefore we have recommended that we give up the system of the mechanism of regulated releases. On the external trade side, at present, there are quantitative restrictions on the export of sugar, sometimes quantitative restrictions on the import of sugar as well. This leads to uncertainty, and quantitative restrictions have almost been removed in relation to every other sector in our country as part of the reform process, and therefore we should move ahead in this area also with that kind of an approach. Therefore, we recommend that we dispense with quantitative controls over the export and import of sugar, because as you know, quantitative controls mean estimating the total production, estimating the total domestic demand, and then determining what is called the exportable surplus. This runs into various problems, and we have to revise from time to time what the surplus that is available. And once the surplus is indicated, then there is also a problem of first come, first served principle to be adopted, and there are difficulties associated with this. Therefore, for all these reasons, we recommend that we move away from quantitative controls. We recommend a stable policy regime with modest tariff levies of 5 to 10% ordinarily, and dispensing with outright bans and quantitative restrictions. There is one more issue, it is one or two more issues. The other relates to the byproducts of the sugar industry. The byproducts of the sugar industry are subject to a number of controls and regulations. Molasses are subject to a number of state imposed regulations. The movement of molasses out of the states is banned in some states or is licensed by some states and so on. Therefore, it is inconsistent with a national market for all of these products. Therefore, we suggest that we remove these controls on the various byproducts. There are some regulations even with respect to bagasse and how it should be used and how the cogeneration should be shared and so on. All these regulations should be dispensed with, and what we are essentially saying is we want to dismantle the end-use based allocation quotas that are in vogue. There is this whole question of ethanol blending and so on. What we are essentially saying is that the byproducts should be available to all the end users at market determined prices. The prices will be determined by the market, and there will be no specific allocation for the end users. All the end users will compete in the market and take it at the price. And finally, there is one recommendation which is relating to the packaging of sugar and in jute bags. This is a regulation which is now in force. We do not think that there is any great validity for it. In fact, jute is not the most ideal packaging material as far as sugar is concerned. We now already exempt, I think, cement from this order, and therefore we recommend that the sugar also should not be subjected to this regulation. I think these are the whole gamut of our recommendations with respect to the various regulations. The detailed analysis is found in the report. You have an executive summary also in the report which which explains the current position and our own argument as to why some changes are needed. I think these are my preliminary remarks.